You are not here by accident. And that truth makes many things begin to tremble, not because you are more special than others, but because you have walked through places where not everyone survives to tell the story. There are paths meant only for the chosen, and those paths always begin with being misunderstood, left behind, and treated as if you no longer have value. If someone looked at your journey from the outside, they would call it failure, but heaven calls it the beginning. You have lived through days when everything seemed to turn its back at once. Words were twisted, intentions questioned, your name pulled into conversations you were never part of. Some people once held your hand, then became the first to let go when the darkness arrived. Some people you lifted up later turned around and said you were never good enough. And the deepest pain was not the words. The deepest pain was the silence of those you believed would stand up for you. But while you were asking yourself what you did wrong, something was happening beyond your sight. While you bowed your head in exhaustion, heaven never looked away. While people thought you were breaking, God was laying a foundation. While they thought you were buried, He was planting. And every seed must stay in dark soil before it sees the light. There were nights you lay there, not because you had no dreams left, but because you no longer had the strength to explain. You were tired of proving you were not what others placed on you. You were tired of speaking truth while lies traveled faster, and there were moments you wondered if you disappeared, would anyone notice? But it was in those moments that an unseen hand held you back, not to make you hide, but to keep you from stepping out too soon. Because if you appeared before the right time, they would tear apart what had not yet matured. If you spoke before you were refined, they would use your own words against you. That is why some doors slammed shut, not because you were not good enough, but because you were too valuable to be wasted. Some relationships fell apart, not because you failed, but because they could not walk with you to where you are about to go. You were underestimated, not because you were small, but because your light exposed their darkness. Your honesty made those who live behind masks uncomfortable. Your steadiness threatened those who chose compromise. And when they could not control you, they chose to define you. What they did not know is that every false word spoken about you is being recorded, not for punishment, but for vindication. There is something you need to hear clearly right now. You were not isolated because you were unworthy. You were set apart because you were anointed. You were not rejected because you lacked value. You were hidden because you carry something that will shake distorted spaces. What looks like delay is actually alignment. What looks like loss is actually pruning so you can bear more fruit. And then an ancient truth begins to echo, not as a sentence, but as a living reality. God prepares a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Psalm 23:5 was not written for decoration. It was written for people like you, those who were looked down on, excluded, dismissed. That table is not prepared in secret. It is prepared in public, not for you to boast, but so no one can deny who lifted you up. The people who once said you would never make it, they will be the witnesses. The people who turned away will face the truth that you did not need them to become who you were called to be. And this does not happen because you seek revenge, but because you remain patient, not because you were loud, but because you guarded your heart when everything around you tried to pull you lower. There was a time you thought you were forgotten, but the truth is you were being preserved. There are battles that if you entered too early, you would win, but you would lose yourself. So God chose another way. He chose silence. He chose darkness. He chose time, not to hurt you more, but so that when you rise with a strength that cannot be shaken. You did not come here to hear a short comfort. You came here to be reminded of who you are and what you have walked through. You did not survive by luck. You were preserved with purpose. Every scar you carry is proof that you did not quit when many others stopped, and that is what makes what is coming next irreversible. This is not yet the moment when everything is fully revealed, but this is the moment you stop doubting your journey. This is when you understand that silence does not last forever, and darkness does not have the final voice. A season is coming when what was built in secret will be seen clearly. And when that happens, you will understand why you had to walk this path, slower, more painful, but deeper than anyone else. You were not buried, you were planted, and every seed knows the day it must rise. Silence does not come immediately. It comes after every word has finished doing its work, after the story has been twisted long enough that you no longer recognize yourself in the eyes of others. There are mornings you wake up and the first feeling is not sadness, but emptiness. No more urge to explain, no more energy to correct things you never did. You begin to understand that there are battles where if you step in, you will lose even when you are right. You remember those moments clearly, when you were about to speak, when you were ready to send a long message to tell the truth, when you stood before a choice between protecting your reputation or protecting your tongue. And in that moment, you chose silence. Not because you were weak, but because something deep inside you whispered that if you opened your mouth, you would step out from under covering. You did not know how to name it then, but now you understand. That was the moment God pulled you out of the sight of those who were not permitted to touch the next chapter of your life. Not everyone has the right to know the whole story. Not everyone is mature enough to handle truth without twisting it through their own fear. So some things must be kept hidden, not because they are shameful, but because they are sacred. Silence begins to reveal what words once concealed. You see who truly stands when you no longer provide benefit, who disappears when you are no longer easy to reach, who stays only when you are strong, and who cannot bear you when you are weak. Relationships fall away without noise. They drift out of your life like leaves that no longer cling to the branch when the season has changed. At times you thought you were being punished, but no, this is not punishment. This is refinement. If those people had remained, you would not have grown the way you needed to. If those voices had stayed in your ears, you would not have heard the whisper guiding you forward. So God did not cut them off in anger. He removed them because He loves you too much to let you stay trapped in spaces that shrink the call on your life. You begin to be alone more often, and in that aloneness, you discover something frightening but necessary. You have no one left to lean on except God. No praise to cling to. No approving gaze to confirm your worth. Only presence remains. And it is here that your true identity begins to take shape. Not who you are in the eyes of others, but who you are when no one is watching. You learn to pray not to be rescued from circumstances, but to be held steady within them. You learn to believe not because things are improving, but because you know the one in control has never let go. You learn to stand firm in empty rooms, where there is no applause, no recognition, only quiet faithfulness. An ancient image rises in that stream of reflection, a child placed in a small basket, hidden among reeds to escape destruction. Exodus 2:3 does not speak only of Moses. It speaks of you, hidden not because you are weak, but because your destiny is too great to be destroyed early. Some things, if exposed before their time, would be crushed by hands not yet ready to carry them. You begin to realize that if you had stayed in old places, you would have had to shrink yourself to fit. You would have had to stay silent about what was placed in your heart. You would have had to soften truth so no one felt uncomfortable. But God did not call you to live small. He called you to live whole. And sometimes, for that to happen, He must pull you away from the crowd. That silence is not empty, it is full of work. In darkness, roots grow deep. In moist soil, seeds break open. No one applauds this stage. No one calls it success. But without it, nothing would stand when the light arrives. You are not being pushed aside. You are being placed at the center of a plan greater than you imagine. There are days you feel forgotten, but the truth is you are being protected from unnecessary battles. There are moments you think you are falling behind, but you are being aligned so you do not arrive too early. The important moment is not when you appear, but when you are ready to stand without losing yourself. And in that silence, you begin to change. Not loudly, not suddenly, but deeply. You no longer react as quickly as before. You no longer need to be right in every conversation. You are no longer provoked by words that once wounded you, not because you are hardened, but because you are being healed layer by layer. You are being prepared for a moment when, once it comes, you will not need to shout to be seen. You will not need to prove yourself to be believed. Your presence will speak on its own. And those who once asked where you went will have to ask a different question, not how you disappeared, but who you have become. There is a stage where you begin to realize that the pain no longer screams like it once did, but it leaves behind a very clear awareness. You are no longer surprised when you hear things about yourself that are not true. You no longer flinch when you learn that your name appears in stories told by people who have never lived your life. What changes you is not that they stop talking, but that you stop letting their words decide how you see yourself. You once believed that if you were sincere enough, honest enough, loving enough, people would understand. But then you learned a costly lesson. Not everyone wants to understand. Some people are not searching for truth. They are searching for a story that fits their insecurity. And when your truth does not serve that need, they rewrite you in a way that feels more comfortable to them. Not because you are wrong, but because you refuse to play a role. You have walked through the feeling of being looked at with suspicion, being treated differently without anyone saying why, being placed into molds you never chose. Some relationships grow unfamiliar even while sitting at the same table. Some conversations end in a heavy silence, as if something broke and no one wanted to pick it up. And it is in those moments that you begin to understand something very deep. Not every distance is a loss. You stop trying to pull people to stay. You stop trying to make yourself easier to understand in order to be accepted. Not because you are cold, but because you are tired of shrinking yourself to fit spaces you outgrew long ago. You begin choosing truth over comfort. And that choice always comes with loneliness, but it also comes with freedom. At times you wonder if you are becoming too hard, if your silence is being misunderstood as pride, if stepping back makes others think you do not care, but then you realize that not every misunderstanding needs to be corrected. Some misunderstandings exist to protect you from connections that would drain you if they continued. Not everyone has the right to understand you. Some people are only meant to see you from a distance. And if at this point, something inside you nods quietly, not because you agree with everything, but because you recognize yourself in these lines, then you do not need to say anything big. A small sign is enough, not to prove that you believe, but to admit to yourself that you are not alone on this path. There are others listening and seeing themselves in the same story. If you choose to stay, to keep listening, it is not because of curiosity. It is because your soul is recognizing something familiar. Not an empty promise, but a deep confirmation that what you have been through was not meaningless. And if you want to continue walking with this flow, not to follow content, but to not miss what is being opened, then you know what you are doing. No one needs to push you. You begin to look back at your journey with different eyes. The words that once hurt you now appear as pieces of a puzzle, not pleasant, but necessary. You realize that without those falls, you would not have stopped to look deeply within. Without those distorted looks, you would not have learned how to stand without needing approval, and without being pushed out of familiar circles, you would not have found the space to grow in your own way. A quiet maturity is taking place. You no longer react immediately. You no longer explain too much. You choose more carefully what you share, not because you fear being hurt, but because you understand the value of what you carry. You do not need to prove that you are right. You only need to live right, and that, over time, will speak for itself. You also begin to realize that not every silence is empty. Some pauses are full of preparation. Some days seem like nothing is happening, but inside you, old layers are being peeled away. Motives that were not yet pure are being exposed. Desires that once drifted off course are being realigned. No one sees that process, but you feel the change clearly. At times, you want to go back, to ask why everything had to unfold in such a difficult way. But every time you consider turning around, a strange peace holds you in place. Not excitement, but certainty, a sense that even though you cannot yet see the result, you are moving in the right direction. And that feeling does not come from people, it comes from somewhere deeper. You no longer crave to be understood by everyone. You only need to be understood by the one who saw you from the beginning. You no longer seek loud affirmation. You begin to value quiet peace. And in that change, you do not lose yourself. You find yourself. The version that does not need to tense up to survive. The version that does not need to perform to be allowed to stay. If something is being formed, it is not a new image for others to see. It is a new foundation for you to stand on when what is coming next begins to open. You are not being called to step into the light right now, but you are being prepared so that when the light comes for you, you are not overwhelmed, not swept away, not lost. And if you are still here, still reading, still listening, that says more than you think. It says you did not quit when things became hard to understand. It says you did not let pain harden your heart. It says you are ready for a deeper layer of the journey, where everything no longer revolves around what people say about you, but around who you are becoming. This flow has not stopped. What you have endured is not the final chapter, but to move forward, you need to carry what you have just realized. Not every closed door is rejection. Some doors close so you will not turn back when the path ahead is opening. That silence does not only separate you from others, it also separates you from the old version of yourself. There are habits you once clung to that no longer fit. There are reactions that once helped you survive that now feel like a burden. And the strange thing is, you do not need anyone to point it out. You feel it yourself, as if a quiet light is shining inward, not to shame you, only to wake you. You begin to look back at your past reactions, the times you spoke too much just to avoid being misunderstood, the times you stayed too long because you were afraid of being left, the times you accepted less than your worth just to keep the peace. Not to blame yourself, but to understand. Because if you do not understand where you went wrong, you will repeat it in a new space with new people, and the old wound will open again under a different name. In this season, you stop searching for answers outside yourself. You stop asking why they did what they did. You stop trying to figure out who was right and who was wrong. Not because you do not care, but because you realize some questions can only be answered by maturity, not by information. And that maturity does not come from knowing more, but from letting go. You begin to release the need to be understood correctly by everyone. You release the desire to be vindicated immediately. You release the urge to prove that you are not the person they described. Every time you let go, you do not become weaker, you become lighter. And when you are lighter, you hear more clearly. You hear things that were once drowned out by the noise of fear and self-defense. There are days that pass very normally, no sign that your life is changing, No good news, no obvious turning point. But if you pay attention, you will notice something. You are not as easily shaken as before. Words that once kept you awake at night now pass by. Looks that once made you shrink no longer carry weight. Not because you are numb, but because you no longer place your value in the hands of others. You also begin to realize that the loneliness of this season is different from the loneliness you once knew. It is not empty. It has depth. It gives you space to think, to remember, to cry if needed, but also to breathe. You are no longer pulled in every direction. You begin to stand still long enough to feel where you are within your own life. There are nights when you stare at the ceiling and realize you are no longer begging for everything to change immediately. You only ask for enough strength to keep going without losing your heart. And that is a major shift, because when you stop demanding that circumstances serve your emotions, you step into another level of freedom, a freedom that does not depend on who appears or disappears. You learn to tell the difference between silence that comes from fear and silence that comes from stability. Before, you were silent because you were afraid to lose. Now you are silent because you do not need to hold on. You no longer feel obligated to respond to everything, not because you have no voice, but because you have chosen where your voice belongs. There are people who no longer appear in your life, and it no longer hurts the way it once did. Not because you never cared about them, but because you understand that not everyone is designed to walk with you through every season. Some relationships are only meant for a specific chapter. When the season changes, old attachments, if held on to, turn into chains. You no longer call it loss. You call it completion. A cycle has closed. No resentment, no clinging. Just acceptance that you have learned what that season was meant to teach, and staying longer would only bring exhaustion. And in that stillness, something very clear is forming. You no longer react from wounds. You begin to respond from understanding. You no longer live to avoid pain. You live to live truthfully. And living truthfully always carries risk, but it also carries strength. Because when you no longer hide yourself, you are no longer easily controlled. You have not stepped into the light yet, but you are no longer afraid of it. You have not been called out publicly, but you no longer need that to know who you are. A quiet certainty is taking root within you, not loud, not showy, but deep enough that when the wind comes, you will not be uprooted. This season does not last forever, but it needs to last long enough so you do not return to what hurt you simply because it feels familiar. When the time comes, you will step forward not with a hunger to be seen, but with a readiness to be placed correctly. And that is the difference between appearing and being established. If you are in this quiet space right now, do not rush. Not because nothing is happening, but because too much is being built where no one can see. And what is built in silence, when it is revealed, will not be easily destroyed. There comes a time when you realize that the words no longer stay at the level of whispers. They begin to spread, moving faster than truth, slipping into places you have never stepped into. Your name is mentioned in stories retold by people who only know a very small piece, yet speak with confidence as if they hold the whole picture. And the most unsettling part is not that the words are wrong, but that you know you have no way to control how they travel. You once believed that if you were clear enough, direct enough, transparent enough, everything would stop. But life does not work that way. Some words are not searching for truth. They are searching for power. And when you are no longer within reach, no longer easily accessed, no longer easily controlled, they begin to talk. Not to understand you, but to keep a sense of control they have lost. You feel that injustice very clearly. There are days you wake up feeling as if you are carrying a sentence that was never put on trial. No chance to defend yourself. No fair hearing, only conclusions made behind your back, then left hanging in the air as if they were truth. And this demands from you a kind of strength you never thought you would need. You stand once again before a familiar choice: either speak up or continue in silence. But this time, silence no longer comes from confusion. It comes from understanding. You understand that there are battles where if you step in, you will lose the most valuable thing you have gained at great cost: your peace. And you understand that there are words which, if you react to them, you will give them power they do not deserve. You are not becoming weaker when you choose silence. You are becoming stronger in a different way, a way that does not need to prove itself, a way that does not need to win every conversation. You are learning how to stand firm without needing to be right in everyone's eyes. And that is a lesson only those who have been deeply misunderstood can learn. There are moments when you wonder whether God sees this at all, whether those false accusations are drifting away without consequence. But there is a truth that needs to be remembered, not to comfort, but to restore order. Psalm 135:14 says clearly that the Lord will vindicate his people and have compassion on his servants. Not maybe, not if conditions allow, but will. That vindication does not always come immediately, and this delay is what causes many to stumble. But you are learning that God does not hurry the way people do. He does not need to react to every word. He is not pressured by public opinion. When he acts once, and it is enough that no one can deny it. His justice does not need defending. It stands on its own. You begin to look at accusations with different eyes, no longer as knives, but as tests, not to see if you can endure, but to see who you will become through them. You realize that every false word spoken about you is forcing you to choose, either to react from the wound or to stand still in truth. And every time you choose truth, even when it is hard, you are laying another stone in the foundation you will stand on later. There are nights when you want to scream, to say that people have it wrong, to pull someone close and force them to see who you really are, but then you remember the times you tried to explain in the past, and it only made everything more tangled. Not because truth is weak, but because the listener was not ready to receive it. And you understand that not everyone deserves to hear your story directly from you. You stop trying to control your image in the eyes of others. You begin to invest in guarding who you truly are when no one is watching. You tend to your inner life more carefully. You choose your words more slowly. You choose your responses later, not because you are afraid, but because you understand the value of self-control. And that self-control is doing something you never expected. It is causing the false accusations to lose their strength on their own. Because lies need reaction in order to survive. Without reaction, they must face time alone. And time always stands with truth. You do not need to expose anyone. You do not need to clarify every detail. You only need to keep living rightly. Every day you live rightly is a day the false story about you grows a little weaker. You also begin to realize that some people believe those words not because they hate you, but because they never truly knew you, and you no longer resent them the way you once did. You understand that not everyone has the capacity to see beneath the surface. Not everyone has the depth to tell the difference between noise and truth. That does not speak about your worth, it speaks about their limits. And then, in the middle of all this, you realize that you have changed. Not in a hardened or cold way, but in a grounded way. You are no longer easily pulled away from your center. You no longer let a single sentence shake your entire day. You no longer carry the fear of being misunderstood as a constant weight. You begin to trust that if someone truly needs to know who you are, time will show them. The accusations that once kept you awake at night now become distant echoes. They still exist, but they no longer control you. And this does not happen because they disappear, but because you have grown beyond them. You have learned how to stand in truth without needing immediate validation. You have learned that true vindication does not come from people apologizing, but from your life continuing to unfold in ways that cannot be denied. You are moving closer to an important line, a place where what is said about you and who you truly are will begin to separate clearly. And when that happens, you will not need to say a single word. The difference will reveal itself, not as retaliation, but as light, not harsh, but enough to illuminate. You do not need to rush. You do not need to prove anything. Some things can only be resolved by time and faithfulness, and you are walking in the right direction, even when that path is misunderstood by those standing on the sidelines. There is something you have never seen, yet it has always been present, not on the human side, but on the side of heaven. While stories about you are being retold in distorted ways, while your name is placed beside things you never lived, there is a place untouched by rumor. There, every detail is kept intact, nothing added, nothing removed, nothing twisted, and that is why you are still standing today. You once believed that if truth was not spoken, it would disappear. But you are learning something different. Truth does not need to be defended by words. It needs to be kept by the way you live. There were moments you wished you had proof, witnesses, a clear way to say that things were not as they claimed, but you did not. And that forced you onto a harder, deeper path, the path of surrender. You begin to understand that not every battle needs to be won on the ground. Some battles are resolved entirely elsewhere, a place no one can interfere with, a place where emotions do not distort judgment, a place where true motives are seen more clearly than outward words. You cannot see that place, but you are beginning to sense that justice is being held there, not lost. There are nights you cry without telling anyone, not because you are weak, but because you no longer believe that speaking to people will bring what you need. You have learned to carry those things to a safer place, and it is in those moments, when you think you are completely unseen, that you are seen most clearly, not by judging eyes, but by eyes that fully understand. Scripture has spoken of this long ago, but only now do you truly feel its depth. A book of remembrance was written before him for those who fear the Lord and who meditate on his name. Malachi 3:16 is not a distant religious phrase. It is a truth actively working in your life. Every tear, every false accusation, every moment you chose not to strike back has not passed without meaning. You once felt forgotten, but now you begin to understand that being forgotten by people does not mean being forgotten in eternity. Some things, if revealed too early, would only cause more harm. Some truths, if exposed while hearts are still defensive, would be twisted again. So delay is not indifference. It is protection for both you and the truth. You look back on those months and realize something remarkable. While others were talking, you were growing. While they were busy building stories, you were being transformed from the inside. Not in a way everyone could see, but in a way nothing could take away. You no longer react as you once did. You are no longer easily drawn into useless confrontations. You begin choosing silence not out of fear, but because you know what you are standing on. There are times you wonder if doing things differently would have made it easier, if explaining sooner might have prevented misunderstanding. But the more you mature, the clearer it becomes. Not everyone wants to hear the truth. Some only want what confirms what they already believe, and you were not called to convince everyone. You were called to be faithful to what was placed in your hands. That faithfulness is quiet. It does not create headlines. It does not make you stand out in conversations, but it carries a lasting strength. It keeps you standing when everything around you shifts. It keeps you from becoming the person pain tries to shape you into. And that is making the greatest difference, even if no one names it yet. You also begin to see that not everyone who believed the accusations is evil. Some were simply not close enough to see the truth. Some were too consumed by their own battles to discern right from wrong. And you no longer carry anger toward them as before, not because you forgot, but because you placed everything where it belongs. Some matters do not need your handling. They have already been recorded in a higher place. The peace you have now is not because circumstances changed, but because you stopped trying to control what was never in your hands. You stopped trying to fix your image in the eyes of those unwilling to see you with fairness. And when you let that go, you felt a real release, as if you no longer had to tense yourself just to survive in someone else's story. A certainty is growing within you, not loud confidence, but a quiet knowing that truth will have its place. You do not need to push it. You do not need to defend it. You do not need to argue for it. When the time comes, it will reveal itself, clearer than any explanation you ever imagined. And that time is closer than you think, not because you have done enough, but because the moment is ripe. Some doors do not open when you knock. They open when you are ready to step through without carrying resentment, without the need to prove, without unhealed wounds. You are moving very close to that place. You do not need to look back to measure who was right or wrong. You do not need to count how much injustice you endured. All of that has been fully recorded. Your role is not to be the judge. Your role is to keep walking in the truth you chose, even when it is not understood right away. One day, what was written in silence will be read through your life, not as accusation, but as revelation. And when that day comes, you will not need to explain what you endured. Your life will tell that story itself, in a way no one can distort anymore. You are being held for a moment like that. And if you are still here, still moving with this flow, it is not by accident. It says you were patient enough to walk through a season where no one applauded. It says you believed in what you could not see. And that has always been the sign of a very deep preparation. There is a very subtle movement taking place, not loud, not showy, but enough to change the atmosphere around you. You may not be able to name it yet, but you can clearly feel that you are no longer standing in the same place as before, not because circumstances have completely changed, but because you have changed how you stand within those circumstances. And when you change your position on the inside, everything on the outside begins to rearrange itself. You once thought that prolonged silence was a sign of being forgotten, but now a different picture is slowly coming into view. Not emptiness, but preparation. Not meaningless delay, but a careful process of alignment. There are things that cannot be rushed. There are moments that if they came even a little earlier, would not carry their proper weight. You begin to look back at the doors that closed in the past, no longer with the same regret as before. There were opportunities that hurt because you thought you were being excluded. There were invitations that never came that made you feel unimportant. But now you realize that if those doors had opened, you would have had to walk in as a version of yourself that was not yet stable. You would have had to sit at tables that were not yet prepared for you. And this is what is changing. You are no longer running to find a seat. A table is being prepared, not in a rush, not by accident. Every detail is being placed in the right position, not to please you, but to fulfill a purpose greater than you. This preparation is not for a brief moment. It is for a season. There is a word that was written long ago, and now it begins to carry a different meaning within you. He has made everything beautiful in its time. Ecclesiastes 3:11 is no longer a sentence to hang on a wall. It becomes the way you look back on your entire journey. The things that once seemed mistimed now begin to appear as essential pieces. You realize that while you thought you were waiting, many things were being arranged to wait for you. The right people, the right spaces, encounters that if they had happened earlier would have only led to misunderstanding. Opportunities that, if they had come when your roots were shallow, would have caused you to lean and fall. Not every closed door is because you were not enough. Some doors closed because you are meant for something greater. You also begin to see more clearly how false connections were quietly removed from your life. Not through major conflict, but through natural fading. Relationships built on benefit, familiarity, or old roles can no longer hold you. And strangely, you no longer try to hold on to them as before. You understand that not everyone is invited to this table. The peace you carry does not come from everyone affirming you. It comes from knowing that you are being placed correctly, even if no one has named it yet. You are no longer rushing to be seen. You are no longer desperate to be vindicated. You begin to trust that when the time comes, everything will be clear without explanation. There are small but very real changes. You speak less, but each word carries more weight. You appear less often, but each appearance leaves an imprint. You no longer push into every space. You choose where you place your feet. And that selectiveness does not make you smaller. It makes you sharper. You also realize that this preparation is not only for what you will receive, but for how you will carry it. Some people are lifted quickly but cannot stand because their inner world was never aligned. You are different. You have walked through enough seasons without applause to understand that value does not come from attention, but from faithfulness when no one is watching. This table is not prepared for revenge. It is not prepared for you to prove who was right or wrong. It is prepared to restore order, to place you in the position you were called to from the beginning, not to inflate your ego, but to clarify your purpose. And that purpose has always been greater than your personal story. A certainty is forming very clearly within you, not excitement, but readiness. You no longer ask when. You begin to ask how to step in without losing what was built in silence. You no longer beg for external change. You guard internal stability. And that is the sign that you are getting close. Closer than you think. Not because you have done enough, but because you have become someone who can carry what is coming. When the moment opens, it will not shock you. It will feel familiar, as if you have been prepared for it for a very long time. You do not need to look around to see who stayed or who left. You do not need to check whether you have been recognized yet. Something more important is happening. You are being placed into your right time, and when that time comes, you will understand why everything had to unfold this way. Slow, deep, and irreplaceable. There is a moment that is very hard to name, when you realize that this journey is not only about surviving, but about completing a very deep cycle within. Not a cycle of circumstances, but a cycle of the soul. What once triggered strong reactions in you no longer holds the same power. What once made you doubt yourself now exists only as memory. Not because it disappeared, but because you walked through it without losing yourself. And it is at this point that a mark begins to appear clearly. Not everyone notices it, but you do. It is the number 777, not as a mystical symbol meant to stir curiosity, but as a quiet language of heaven. 777 speaks of completion within the soul. It speaks of a journey that has gone deep enough to no longer be pulled backward by old wounds. It is a sign of awakening, when you no longer believe only with emotion, but with experience refined through time. 777 does not arrive when everything is easy. It appears when you have learned how to stand firm on days when no one stood with you, when you chose faithfulness over reaction, when you allowed truth to do its work without stepping in with your ego. This is not a number of luck. It is a number of spiritual maturity, of those who walk through darkness without allowing darkness to remain within them. You look back at your journey and clearly see each layer that has closed. The layer of needing recognition, the layer of needing to be understood immediately, the layer of carrying anger as a form of protection. Each layer fell away not because you forced it, but because you no longer needed it. And when those layers fell, what remained was clarity. Not loud, not showy, but real. You may not be able to name what is happening, but you feel it very clearly. You are no longer pulled into stories that do not belong to you. You no longer feel the need to step into confrontations to protect your reputation. You know who you are, and that certainty does not come from external affirmation, but from a deeper place, where no one can touch or distort it. 777 also speaks of alignment. No more tension between what you want and what you are called to do. No more conflict between your soul and your direction. You begin to feel your decisions becoming lighter, clearer, not because fear is gone, but because fear no longer controls you. An alignment is taking place, and when that happens, energy once wasted on defense is released for building. You also begin to realize that not everyone will understand this stage of your life. Some will say you have changed. Some will say you have grown distant. Some will no longer recognize you in the way you respond. But that is not loss. It is proof that you did not remain stuck. When you grow, those familiar with your old version will feel uncomfortable, and that does not mean you are wrong. There is a very different kind of quiet surrounding you now. Not the quiet of waiting, but the quiet of readiness. You no longer ask when. You are no longer restless because you have not seen results. You are in a state where whether the door opens or not, you remain steady, and that very state is what allows the door to open without causing you to fall. If the number 707 is resonating within you, it is not because you were told to feel that way, but because something in your journey has reached this level, and if you choose, you can share that. Not to prove where you are, but to acknowledge that you have gone far enough to recognize this mark when it appears. Each person will feel it differently, but the resonance cannot be faked. You are no longer walking randomly. Each step now carries awareness, not tension, but presence. You are no longer surviving day by day. You are living with the awareness that you are in a very important transitional season. And this does not make you proud, it makes you more humble, because you know clearly that without those dark days, you could not be standing here with this steadiness. 777 also reminds you that completion does not mean an ending. It is the closing of one cycle to open another, wider, deeper. You do not return to who you were, you move forward with what you have learned. And what you have learned is not how to defeat others, but how to guard your heart when everything around you is uncertain. You are stepping into a new space where you are no longer defined by what has been said about you, but by what is flowing through you. No noise is needed. No display is needed. Only the right timing, and that timing is closer than you think, because you are no longer standing in the wrong place. There is a moment when you feel it very clearly. What is coming will no longer remain in the shadows, not because you are searching for the light, but because the light is beginning to find you. You do not need to pull it closer. You do not need to prepare an explanation. This unveiling does not arrive as a shock, but as a confirmation, as if everything has finally fallen into its rightful place. You have grown used to carrying vision without being seen, used to carrying a calling without external validation. There were days you wondered if you were imagining too much, if everything you believed truly had a place in this world. Yet you kept walking, not because you were certain things would open, but because you could no longer return to who you once were. And then, a very clear shift begins. Spaces that once had no room for you start to open. Doors that were once silent begin to move. Not because you knocked harder, but because the time has come. There is no rush. no sense of competition. Everything opens in a way that makes you understand that if this had happened earlier, you would not have been strong enough to stand there. There is a word written for this very moment. Nations will see your righteousness and all kings your glory. Isaiah 62:2 does not speak of you lifting yourself up. It speaks of vindication being seen, not in hidden corners, but before others, not for you to boast about what you endured, but so no one can deny the hand that led you here. This unveiling is not as loud as people imagine. It does not require you to speak loudly. It does not require you to retell your story. Your life begins to speak on its own. The peace you carry starts to draw attention. The way you enter a space begins to change the atmosphere, not because you are trying to influence, but because you are no longer carrying defense. Those who once doubted you will see something they did not expect. Not bitterness, not retaliation, but steadiness. And that leaves them without words, because they prepared for a different reaction. They thought you would need to prove yourself, but you do not. You simply live rightly. And over time, that becomes evidence no one can refute. You also realize that this unveiling is not the destination. It is a doorway, not for you to stop, but for you to step into greater responsibility. Some things are only entrusted once you have learned not to use them to serve your ego. You have walked through enough seasons of being overlooked to understand that influence is not about how many people see you, but about what you carry when they do. A reintroduction is taking place. Not that you become someone else, but that you are seen as you truly are. No more layers of misunderstanding covering you. No more distorted stories defining you. What was once whispered is now replaced by what is clearly visible, and you do not need to correct the past. The present is doing that work for you. There is something very important to hold on to in this moment. Do not let the unveiling make you forget the days you walked alone. Do not let the light cause you to despise the darkness that taught you how to stand. You are not being lifted to look down on others. You are being lifted to reflect what kept you alive when no one else did. Another word rises as a final confirmation. This is the Lord's doing, and it is marvelous in our eyes. Psalm 118-23 is not just a beautiful phrase. It is the closing line of a long journey of faithfulness. When people look and cannot explain it with logic, cannot credit human effort, they are left with one option: to acknowledge that a greater hand intervened. And you know this. You know you did not arrive here through tricks. You did not arrive by stepping on others. You did not arrive through compromise. You arrived through days no one saw, through choices no one applauded, through moments when you chose to guard your heart, when you could have reacted differently. This vindication does not need prolonged applause. It does not need public apologies. It does not need recognition from everyone. It only needs the right place. And you are standing in that place now, not because you are perfect, but because you allowed yourself to be changed deeply enough that when the time came, you did not lose yourself. You no longer step into public spaces with the fear of being misunderstood. You carry a very quiet certainty that if someone still chooses to see you wrongly, that is no longer your burden. You have learned to release it, and that release has made you freer than ever. You are standing at the boundary between what has passed and what is coming. No need to look back. No need to look sideways, only to move forward with who you have become. Because from here on, the story is no longer about what was said about you, but about what you are carrying into the new spaces that are opening. When everything begins to surface, there is a quiet but decisive choice resting in your hands. No one forces you. No one reminds you. There are no big signs. Only one very honest question echoing inside you. Will you walk in grace or in retaliation? Because when the balance begins to tilt in your favor, your true nature will be revealed more clearly than any words ever spoken about you. You waited a long time to be vindicated, so the desire to see others realize they were wrong is deeply human. But you have also come far enough to understand that if you let anger lead you now, you will return to the very place you worked so hard to leave, not in circumstance, but in posture. And you did not walk through all those seasons just to become another version of your pain. One thing is very clear now. True vindication does not need noise. It does not require you to retell what happened. It does not need you to highlight who did what wrong. When truth stands firm, it does not need advertising. It radiates on its own. And what confuses people the most is not that you are lifted up, but the peace you carry when you are lifted. You begin to understand that not every lie needs to be exposed. Some of them will collapse on their own when they no longer have ground to stand on, not because you tear them down, but because you no longer feed them with reaction. You no longer need to win every conversation. Your life is answering for you in a way that cannot be twisted. There is a necessary reminder here. The Lord is a God of justice. Blessed are all who wait for him. Isaiah 30:18 does not say waiting is easy. It says waiting is blessed. And you are living proof of that. You did not wait in despair. You waited in faithfulness, even when you did not know what would come next. That faithfulness now carries a new responsibility. You are not lifted to hurt those who once hurt you. You are lifted to reflect a different way of living, a way not controlled by painful memories, a way that does not need to prove it was right, a way strong enough to not need revenge. Some people may return, some with genuine regret, some out of curiosity, some unchanged, and you do not need to respond the same way to all of them. Forgiveness does not mean opening the door. It means you no longer allow the past to rule your present. You do not carry old weight into new spaces. You step in lighter. Do not avenge yourselves, but leave room for the wrath of God. Romans 12:19 is not a call to weakness. It is an invitation into freedom. Because when you stop trying to be the judge, you are released to be yourself. And that is what makes you dangerous in a very different way. Not loud, but unshakable. You begin to understand that real influence does not come from how much you say, but from what you preserve when everything shifts. People may forget what you said, but they will not forget how you behaved when you had every reason to do otherwise. And in a world driven by reaction, your calm becomes a powerful testimony. You no longer live to prove that you were chosen. You live as someone who knows they are loved. And that difference changes everything. It changes how you enter a room, how you speak, how you decide. You are no longer rushed. You are no longer afraid of being misunderstood. You carry a very quiet certainty that what began in silence will continue to be completed the right way. This journey does not end here, but a very important cycle has closed. The cycle of living under the gaze of others. The cycle of letting outside voices define inner worth. The cycle of carrying pain as identity. You are no longer there. You stepped out. Not because you ran fast, but because you stood firm long enough. From here on, you will be seen more, not because you seek it, but because light always finds where it can be reflected best. And when that happens, you will not panic. You have been prepared. You have been refined. You have been taught how to stand in the light without losing your soul. You were not buried. You were planted. You were not forgotten. You were preserved. And what is unfolding in your life is not the revenge of fate, but the fulfillment of a promise. Not for you to boast about what you endured, but for you to become a place of refuge for those standing where you once stood. Now, walk forward, without noise, without proving anything. Walk as someone who knows they were kept in the dark and brought into the light at the right time. Your life is no longer an answer to accusation. It has become a testimony of grace.
Grateful that you chose to spend these moments in the light of this story. If it touched your soul, please like, share, and subscribe, and ring the bell so the next whisper of light may find its way back to you.